For Sinister Farm Hauntings, discover the terrifying secrets of cursed land and unexplained darkness. The Peterson family thought they'd found paradise in a charming old farmhouse on the outskirts of Willow Creek. But as soon as they stepped foot inside, they felt the weight of something sinister lurking in every shadow. Whispers of cursed farms hit them like a slap, tales of tormented soil and restless spirits that made their skin crawl. Jack, once a proud mechanic with grease-stained hands, felt the lost job echo in the walls around him. Was this place a refuge or a trap? The house creaked inside, sharing secrets of abandoned laughter and forgotten souls. Jack and Sarah exchanged uneasy glances as night fell, uneasy senses prickling. Dark silhouettes darted across their vision, the kind that leave a chill when you turn your back. The children, blissfully unaware of the creeping dread, found comfort running through the dusty rooms. Emily and Ben's giggles bounced off the peeling wallpaper, but those laughs had a strange, haunting quality as if something else was playing along. Then one night, as the wind howled like a wounded beast, a thump came from upstairs. Jack's heart raced as he approached, only to find nothing but silence and old photographs hanging like ominous portraits, their subjects glaring at him from behind time. A flicker of movement caught his eye, but when he turned, there was nothing, just empty air and the oppressive stillness seeping through the walls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days dragged on, the eerie atmosphere twisted like a thorny vine around Jack's chest. The children drew strange pictures, dark figures creeping into their innocent art. Ben woke in the night screaming, eyes wide, shivering as he described a shadow standing over him, cold and forbidding. Emily's laughter turned hollow, claiming to play with a little girl in a frayed dress who warned her to leave. Panic ignited in Jack and Sarah. The whispers were getting louder, echoing the old stories they couldn't ignore. Then, one stormy night, the pounding at the door jolted the family. Jack opened it to find Gary from next door, just a bit too pale and a lot too eager. "You need to leave," he said urgently, eyes darting. But the warmth in his voice felt more like ice. Underneath the facade of charm was an unsettling thread. All the townsfolk could feel it, knew it, but never spoke of the darkness that pooled in their community. A tremor coursed through Jack, and as he retreated to the safety of his home, his phone buzzed, tearing through the heavy air. "Did you think you could escape the curse?" The message blurred into his vision, tugging at a primal fear deep within. Surrendering wasn't an option, but neither was staying. The shadows were closing in, and the Peterson family stood at the precipice of an ancient horror, forced to confront what lay beneath. Sarah's breath quickened, a relentless pressure gripping her throat as she watched Jack pace the dimly lit living room. The flickering light of the single bulb overhead played tricks with the shadows, creating ghostly forms that danced against the walls. "What do we do, Jack?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to find out what's happening here," he replied, forcing strength into his tone. But deep down, doubt gnawed at him. The looming message on his phone echoed like a cursed incantation in his mind. How were they supposed to confront something they didn't understand? Outside, the wind howled like a tormented spirit, rattling the windows. Every creak of the old farmhouse shattered the stillness, resonating in the heavy silence where laughter once lived. Jack glanced at the kids, asleep on the dingy couch, blissfully unaware of the terror creeping around the edges of their new home. But that bliss wouldn't last. He felt it in his bones. The next morning, tense with anticipation, Jack and Sarah braved the town. They ran into Gary at the local diner, his hands trembling as he sipped a coffee that had long gone cold. "You need to get the hell out of that house," he urged, glancing around as if fearing an unseen listener. Things happen there. It's not just old stories." "What do you mean?" Jack pressed, his voice low, desperate for answers. There's a darkness buried deep. Bad things happened on that land way before you came. People vanished. It's hungry, and it's moving. Gary's eyes flickered with a strange intensity, his gaze darting sideways as if shadows passed unseen. Shivers ran down Jack's spine, but he couldn't show weakness, not in front of Sarah. "We'll be fine," he said, forcing a tight smile that felt more like a grimace. Once home, they made a plan. They needed to dig into the history of the farm, uncover the hidden truths shrouding their new life. As night fell, Jack rummaged through dusty boxes in the attic, filled with the remnants of former lives. Yellowed papers and faded photographs spilled out, each piece of the puzzle heavy with untold stories. But one photo caught his eye, a family portrait, faces solemn and eyes hollow. The children looked strikingly similar to Ben and Emily, almost like reflections through time. He turned it over, finding a date scrawled on the back, 1973. Beneath it, a single word sent ice through his veins disappeared. Heart pounding, he rushed downstairs to Sarah, who was searching for clues among the books lining the shelves. "Look at this." He thrust the photo into her trembling hands, watching her face shift into confusion, then fear. "Jack, what does it mean?" Before he could answer, a crashing noise echoed from the hallway. They rushed to the sound, only to find Emily standing frozen, pointing at the dark corner of the room. "The girl," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "She's here." The air thickened, swirling with an unnatural dread. Shadows morphed and twisted, a silhouette forming within as the chill seeped deeper. Jack felt a primal urge to run, but rooted in place, unable to fathom the horror standing before him. "Emily, come back!" Sarah yelled, panic rising in her throat. Suddenly, a laugh, cold and hollow, bounced against the walls, echoing memories of the children from decades past. And then silence. A deep void enveloped them as the shadows swallowed the light, leaving only a piercing darkness. They were no longer just visitors. The curse was alive, intertwining their fates, and the family portrait lay ominously, forgotten on the floor, a silent promise of what was to come. "Jack, what are we going to do?" He turned to her, fear etched in their eyes. The game had changed, and they were now players in a terrifying tale woven by the land itself. They needed to unravel the truth, or it would consume them all. Suddenly, a loud booming sound erupted from the basement, making the floor tremble. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, looking at Jack in terror. "I don't know, but we need to find out." And with that, they stepped toward the basement door, their hearts pounding as the darkness beckoned them deeper. What awaited them below? The basement door creaked open, the sound echoing like a warning. Jack felt a wave of dread wash over him as they descended the stairs, each step sending vibrations through the old wood that felt more like a heartbeat than an inanimate structure. The air thickened. It smelled damp, musty, tinged with something metallic that made his stomach churn. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely above the tremor of their surroundings. Jack strained to listen. A faint rustling tickled his ears, like whispers snaking through the walls. He grabbed Sarah's hand, their fingers intertwining, forcing a shred of warmth against the encroaching pull of fear. "Maybe it's just rats," he lied, squeezing her hand tighter for reassurance. But the truth was, he didn't believe it. As they reached the bottom, their eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering in from a small, dirty window. Shapes lurked in the corners, jagged shadows that twisted against the splintered walls. They moved with an almost human quality, and Jack's heart raced as he scanned the room. Scattered throughout were remnants of what once might have been a workspace, rusty tools, old boxes, and a large stone altar draped in grimy lace that made his skin crawl. "What's an altar doing down here?" Sarah's voice cracked as she pointed. He stepped closer, drawn to it against his better judgment. The surface was chill to the touch, but Jack felt an electric pulse beneath the stone, as if the altar itself was alive. Symbols marked its surface, symbols that seemed to writhe under his gaze. "Jack, don't!" Sarah's voice cut through the thick air. But he was already kneeling, eyes wide. In the flickering light, He could make out inscriptions that felt familiar yet foreign, intertwining with the very essence of terror that hung in the air. "This isn't a workbench," he murmured, a realization settling like a weight in his stomach. That a laugh echoed again, closer this time, a chilling, childlike giggle that reverberated off the walls. "Emily!" Sarah hissed, her hand flying to her mouth in horror. "Get back!" Jack turned. Emily had stepped further into the room, her face calm and eerily tranquil. "She's here with us," Emily stated matter-of-factly, as if discussing something mundane. "Emily, we need to go back upstairs right now." Jack's voice was a harsh whisper, panic flooding through him. "No, Daddy. She wants to play," Emily replied, a smile blooming on her face. But her eyes betrayed a darkness that sent fresh terror through Jack's veins. "Damn it! Get away from that!" he shouted, panic sharpening his tone. He lunged forward, grabbing Emily's arm, but her body felt foreign, cold. The shadows shifted, dark tendrils reaching towards them, grasping at their legs like hungry spirits. Jack could feel them wrapping around him, tugging, pulling him into a suffocating grip that threatened to drown him in fear. "Jack! Sarah, run!" Sarah screamed, her voice breaking as she yanked at Emily, trying to pull her back. But Emily stood, transfixed, laughter bubbling in a way that seemed utterly wrong. "No, no!" Jack yelled, feeling the pull of the shadows grow stronger. "I want to stay, Daddy." Emily's voice trailed off, a distant echo. The booming sound returned, ripping through the air, shaking the very foundation of the farmhouse. The lights flickering wildly now, revealing shadowy figures pressing against the walls' faces, eyes, shapes of those who had come before. "Leave her alone," Jack shouted, a surge of desperation pushing him forward. He and Sarah struggled against the dark forces, the shadows thickening and swirling, and just when hope seemed dim, a blinding light burst forth from the altar. "What is that?" Sarah cried, shielding her eyes as it illuminated the space. Jack felt pulled toward it, aware that whatever danger lurked in that darkness paled in comparison to what this light held. But what would they have to sacrifice to step into it? "Jack, we have to go." Sarah's panic reached a fever pitch. But as he hesitated, caught in the indecision, more laughter, the echoing laughter of children, filled the room, twisting the light into dark shapes. Then, everything went silent. "Emily!" Jack called into the void. Nothing stirred. The light dimmed, shadows surged, and the basement door slammed shut behind them, locking them in. As darkness enveloped them once more, Jack realized they weren't alone anymore. What would they have to face to escape? Would they even make it out alive? The silence was a weight that pressed down on them, thick and suffocating. Jack's heart thundered in his chest, each beat hammering louder than the last. He strained to make sense of the darkness. Around him, the shadows whispered and twisted, alive with a malevolent presence. He felt Sarah's grip tighten, her fingers digging into his skin, and he could sense her shivering beside him. "Jack, we have to do something." Her voice was barely a breath, tremulous with fear. He nodded, his mind racing. Fear spiked as he looked towards the altar, now shrouded in a heavy darkness. The symbols had morphed from shapes into something grotesque and monstrous, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. A glimmer of light sparked back to life, dancing just beyond Jack's reach, teasing him with its promise of escape. "Emily!" he called again, his voice hoarse. "Emily, where are you?" The shadows shifted in response, parting momentarily to reveal a hazy figure at the altar. Emily lingered there, transfixed in a childlike wonder that felt wrong against the chilling backdrop. Her eyes, once vibrant, now glowed with an unsettling intensity, and Jack felt his stomach turn. "Emily, come here," he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "Daddy, she's so nice," Emily said, her voice sweet yet tainted, echoing off the basement walls. Fear sliced through him. "No, she isn't. She wants to hurt you." Jack lunged forward instinctively, pulling Sarah with him as they closed the gap. But Emily remained still, a puppet on strings, her expression vacant yet dangerously curious. Just then, the laughter returned horrifyingly close. It was a chorus now, dozens of childlike giggles echoing through the cramped space, surrounding them, making every hair on Jack's body stand on end. "Make it stop," Sarah whimpered, burying her face in Jack's shoulder. The whispering shadows spiraled, coiling around them like smoke, whispering secrets just beyond the edge of understanding. Jack felt a shiver crawl down his spine as he thought of all the unspeakable horrors hidden beneath the house, the past unearthing itself, desperate to claim them. Gathering souls. A voice uttered, smooth and sinister, emanating from the dark like a sinuous serpent. The air grew cold, frosting over their breaths, and Jack swallowed a sudden lump in his throat. "Gathering what? Who are you?" Jack forced out, trying to fight the rising panic that was threatening to consume him. With each heartbeat, the light from the altar flickered erratically, like a heartbeat fading into oblivion. Oddly beautiful and terrifying, the glow stretched, revealing figures' hollowed eyes and hollowed cheeks that bore expressions frozen in torment. Silent witnesses of a cruel fate. A collective, frozen scream of desperation. "Daddy!" Emily squealed, finally looking up, her voice full of childish excitement that felt so out of place. "They want to play with me." "No!" Jack shouted, pulling Sarah closer, his instincts screaming at him to protect them. He couldn't let her join that wretched play. Suddenly, the darkness swelled, and with it came a burst of icy air. Shadows writhed and twisted, rushing towards them. Jack shoved at the oppressive force. "Run!" But where? The darkness felt all-consuming, the altar a beacon of sinister promise. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. "The door, Jack! The door!" The thud of the door echoed back, a cruel reminder of being trapped. Every pulse of the altar resonated like a heartbeat of the house, blood coursing through the very walls. They had to reach it, find a way to break through, but the shadows moved faster, beckoning them toward a fate worse than dark. "Emily, please!" Jack shouted one last time. But as the shadows closed in, the warmth of the altar pulled him toward it, whispering mesmerizing secrets that felt just out of reach. The last flicker of light revealed something standing behind him, something dreadful and wide-eyed, and then the world swung into darkness. What awaited them as the shadows closed in? Would they be able to break the curse gripping the basement before it consumed everything they loved? Jack felt the darkness engulfing them, an icy grip that seemed to pierce through to his bones. Panic surged through him, pushing him toward the door, instinct screaming that it was the only way out. But the shadows twisted, snaking around his legs, pulling him back, an insistent force dragging him further into their cold embrace. "Jack, we can't get out." Sarah's voice rose, raw and desperate. She was pulling him again, struggling against the weight of the shadows swirling around them. Her face was pale, expression contorted with fear. The altar pulsed, and every beat seemed to mock their plight. "Emily!" Jack barked, his voice straining against the wails of giggling children that echoed in the suffocating darkness. "Come here right now." He could barely see her anymore. She seemed swallowed by that malevolent glow, deepening the rift between them, all while the shadows chuckled wickedly, eager for them to falter. "Daddy, I want to go play." Emily laughed, the sound chilling. "There's so much fun." "No, you have to listen to me." Jack felt heat rising in his chest, panic twisting to a volatile mix of anger and fear. "Sarah, hold on to me. We have to help me." Emily screamed, her voice suddenly terrified, breaking the childlike facade. "Daddy, help!" The shadows recoiled, revealing a glimpse of her, eyes wide, face stricken, caught in an unseen tug of war. She began to sway, pulled toward the altar's ominous glow. A primal scream tore from Jack's throat, forcing his body into motion, charging at the altar, reaching for his daughter. But the shadows retaliated, blurring his vision as they twisted tighter, almost suffocating in their grip. He could feel their cold tendrils brushing against his skin, icy fingers trying to pry him away from reality. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee into the dark somewhere that felt safer than this. "Trust me," Jack shouted to Sarah, but she was caught in place. He knew that look in her eyes. She was scared to move, scared of what lay in the shadows. But he couldn't leave her. Jack, Sarah whispered, tremors in her voice. We can't, don't say that, he growled, shaking his head vehemently. He could still hear Emily whimpering beneath the laughter of the shadows, wailing for help that felt tantalizingly out of reach as he forced his way through. The altar glimmered brighter once again, and in that moment, Jack thought he heard a whisper, one that felt far too intimate. It spoke his name soft, caressing, as if it knew him. Return what was given, Jack. Only then can you save her. The words sent a shiver of dread racing through him. What did it mean? What had he given away? Jack grasped for memories, but they swirled like the shadows around him. The laughter grew more sinister, drowning out his thoughts, pulsing to a dark rhythm. Jack, please! Sarah's scream pierced the chaos, echoing his name like a desperate prayer. And suddenly clarity struck. He remembered the book, the one hidden away for years that had whispered promises of power, of bending fate. It was the key, the terrible weight he and Sarah had tried to push down, but now it seemed to surface atop nights lost in darkness. Stay close, he roared, the determination cracking through the paralyzing fear. He dove toward the altar, reaching deep into the recesses of his memory, pulling forth bits of forgotten lore about what could banish these ancient horrors. Just as he grasped the foundations of his resolve, he heard the sound of tearing fabric, the sickening pop of something unmistakably wrong. The shadows seethed, pulling back as a guttural growl resonated through the space. Jack spun around, heart racing, as the shadows parted to reveal something massive lurking in the corner. A figure dark and twisted, with hollow eyes and a mouth stretching impossibly wide. It grinned at them, all sharp teeth, ebbing out a fog of despair. Do you think you can break the bond? Taunted voice like rust scraping against stone. You've given so much and I've come to collect. Jack's breath caught in his throat as the reality crashed down on him. His choice was no longer just about Emily or Sarah. It was a challenge against something deeper, older, woven right into the fabric of the house. Get ready, he called, hoping to mask the tremor in his voice. We fight this, together. But two things raced through his mind: how, and at what cost. The creature lunged as the altar began to pulse even harder, wrapping them in light but also darkened secrets. Jack felt the room bending around him, and he realized this was just the beginning. What further horrors awaited if they failed to break the grip of that cursed bond? The creature surged forward, a mass of shadows and rage, claws extended, ready to claim what it was owed. Jack's heart thundered in his chest as he took a step back, forcing himself to breathe hard, jagged gasps that barely filled his lungs. Stay behind me, he shouted, though he doubted anyone could hear over the thrumming darkness that reverberated through the air, swallowing their words. In that moment, the altar pulsed, a flicker of otherworldly light spilling around them, wrapping like a noose. Sarah was still beside him, whites of her eyes mere slivers as they gleamed with terror. Jack, what do we do? Think, he barked, glancing from the altar to the looming figure, the shadows blending into its form like whispers becoming screams. He remembered pieces of forbidden knowledge, familiarity creeping back in. The book, it had incantations. If we can recall, as if sensing their resolve, the creature let out a chilling laugh that rattled the very air. Its mouth hung wide, displaying rows of glistening, serrated teeth. You want to fight it? Pathetic. You cannot unbind yourself from what has been given. You belong to me. Jack's instincts roared. He lunged for the altar, already knowing he had to enact the spell. He fumbled through his mind, wrestling against the weight of panic that sat heavy in his gut. Emily's small voice echoed, Daddy, where are you? A snapshot of her laugh, so innocent and carefree, pierced through the dark. He couldn't let her down. He would not surrender to the darkness. With sheer will, Jack forced his own voice to cut through the sinister laughter. With power drawn, I summon thee. Release this child, return what you've taken. The air grew thick, vibrating around them, and the creature's grin faltered for a heartbeat. Light surged from the altar like a wave crashing against dark rocks, illuminating the cavernous space just enough for Jack to see Emily, her form still wavering against the pull. "Emily!" he yelled again, reaching out as he felt the shadows tighten around him, ripping him back, dragging him into an abyss of despair. In that moment, the shadows throbbed with fury. Jack braced himself, feeling a sickening twist as the darkness hissed and surged forward. "You dare challenge me, mortal?" The floor trembled, sending splinters through his resolve. But he gritted his teeth, pushing against the shadows clutching at him. "Fear is a bond, and I sever it. You shall not take her." Suddenly, Sarah screamed, crashing against his side. "Jack, it's too strong." Her voice echoed like a future that felt doomed. But just as Jack felt himself slipping, a flash of vision enveloped him. Are they screaming? Are they trapped in this photograph of despair? The figure lunged forward, but someone else was drawing close, a flickering shadow at the edge of his vision. Another figure, familiar, angry. He turned to it, and recognition punched hard into his heart. "Emily?" he stammered, but the truth twisted uncomfortably in his gut. This couldn't be her form, transformed, emanated innocence yet glinted with something darker, something hungry. "Daddy, I want to stay." The echoes of her voice tangled with the laughter of the creature, both sweet and sinister. In that moment, Jack realized the horrifying truth. She had been changed by the bond of the dark. Panic surged through him, threatening to crumble every ounce of composure he had left. "No, Emily, you don't know what you're saying." And then the shadows lunged, encasing him, encircling Sarah, Emily's laughter intertwining with the creature's curse. With a final, desperate cry, he pushed against the darkness, his heart racing, as a fanged smile split the creature's face wider, a ghastly promise that churned in the pit of Jack's stomach. "Come, my child. Keep your father in the dark." Time stretched, reality wavered, and the altar pulsated ominously as a chilling thought clawed its way through Jack's mind. How far had he strayed from the one thing he swore to protect? What was he willing to sacrifice for his daughter, and would that even be enough to save her? Jack's entire world shrank to the weight of shadows wrapping around him. Choking on desperation, he clawed at the darkness, feeling its icy fingers latch onto his skin, dragging him deeper into a hellish embrace. The altar loomed, pulsating with eerie light, whispering promises he couldn't afford to listen to. "Let her go," he shouted, but only silence greeted him, thick like fog, drowning out the summoning chants he desperately remembered. The creature's laughter echoed, a symphony of malice and twisted delight, pouring over him like ice water. Around him, shadows writhed. "You still grasp at hope, foolish man?" The creature taunted, its presence a living nightmare. "Hope is a vanity you cannot afford here. Your daughter is mine now." Emily's eyes, once warm and innocent, now flickered with an alien hunger, pulling him closer, closer. "Daddy, please," she cooed, but her voice twisted, layered with something sinister. Each word was a hook sinking deep into his flesh. "I want to stay." Jack felt his insides churn. The maddening rush of bile caught in his throat. No, he couldn't believe this. "Emily, please." He reached out, hoping to grasp the reality of her, to pull her back into the light. But each inch he tried to gain was met with a counterattack from the shadows, slashing at his will. "Every child leaves family behind," the creature hissed. "She will be reborn into the dark. You will never see her again." Around them, the light of the altar throbbed, casting grotesque shadows against the walls, making the stones seem alive, pulsing with dread. Jack's breathing turned erratic as memories of Emily giggling filled his head, battling against the darkness that threatened to consume them both. "Fight her back," Sarah grated, her voice strained and trembling, breaking through the chaos. "We can't let this happen." Jack turned, hope sparking ever so slightly in his chest. He couldn't abandon them. We need to recite the incantation together," he stammered, trying to cling to what slipped through his fingers. "If we both focus, maybe it can break this nightmare's hold." Do you think words will undo what has been done? The creature sneered, thick shadows swirling like a tempest, taunting them. Watch how fragile your faith is. Jack shot a glance back at Emily, who thrashed in the haze, her form still calling to him, a twisted reminder of the love he held. Together, he urged, his voice shaking with urgency. Now, Sarah cried, grasping Jack's hand, their fingers intertwined like a lifeline. Their voices rose, cutting through the heaviness. By the chains that bind and the light that fears, Jack shouted, forcing every ounce of love, of desperation into the words. I free you from this dark. The shadows writhed in protest, lashing against their words, but they pressed on, each syllable pushing back against the darkness. The altar reacted, a warmth washing over Jack, the shadows retreating slightly. For a breath, hope blossomed. But then, the creature roared, a sound that reverberated against the walls, sending tremors through the cavern. You think you can break me? You think love will win against the dark? Emily, Jack yelled, pulling at fragments of her fading spirit, caught in that cycle of torment. The fight wasn't just against the creature. It was a fight for his daughter's soul. Just then, Emily's voice faded to a murmur beneath the creature's death howl. Daddy, help me. Jack's heart raced. Would it be enough? Could love overpower the darkness? And a single thought gripped him tight, a single truth. He might be the only thing standing between Emily and eternal night. Your heart is lost, the creature snarled, and Jack surged forward, adrenaline pumping through him. But reality warped, shadows clinging as he plunged towards the altar. Was it all slipping away? The air grew dense, suffocating, and he could feel the darkness tightening its grip. Jack, no! Sarah's scream fractured the thick air, just as the darkness flared back with vengeance. Determination flooded Jack as he drove deeper into the nightmare, eyes fixated on Emily's flickering form. I will not let you take her. Behind him, Sarah fell silent. The altar pulsed again, but this time darkness swallowed the light, twisting and swirling till shadows merged into one mass of vengeance. Panic all you want, hero. You have already lost. The creature knew it. Jack felt it, the certainty of defeat closing in. But then a spark ignited, a feral resolve within him surged. Emily, he cried, and darkness froze. What would he discover in the heart of that darkness? Would it consume him too? Time stretched, a taut string ready to snap, as the darkness held its breath. The air crackled with something otherworldly, the tension palpable. Shadows lurked like predators, restless and hungry. Jack could barely focus, his mind racing. Could he confront the deadly void? Would Emily even recognize him when he did? Emily, he screamed again. Turn back. Fight it. The shadows flickered, revealing a semblance of her face. A fleeting glimpse of that golden-haired girl he'd once known. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a hollow, twisted version of himself, a creature of despair. Feel her slipping, hero, the darkness taunted, wrapping around him like a noose. You cannot save what is already lost. He grounded himself, a threadbare resolve guiding his every desperate breath. Jack pushed forward. With each step toward the altar, he felt the chill bite harder, the shadows clawing at his sanity. What was waiting for him on the other side? He didn't know, but he had to try. The altar pulsed, a heartbeat of its sinister own, drawing him closer as he fell into its orbit. Let the sacrifice begin, the creature hissed, a twisted grin clawing at its face as blackened tendrils slithered from the altar, reaching like fingers for Emily. Stay away from her, Jack yelled, feeling rage boiling beneath the fear. He almost stumbled but steadied himself, centering on the flickering warmth of his memories, the laughter, the hugs, the family dinners shared around the table. Focus, Jack. Sarah's voice echoed through his mind, lifting him momentarily above the suffocating dread. With a newfound clarity, Jack chanted the incantation, his voice breaking through the cacophony. Days spent learning, uttering mantra after mantra felt like a lifetime ago. But right now, every syllable mattered. By the chains that bind and the light that fears, I free you from this dark. Words exploded from his throat, bursting like cracked glass. Each word dripped with his essence, the weight of his love pouring into the void. For a heartbeat, the shadows quivered, stuttered, losing their grip as if shaken by a mortal understanding of utterly unfathomable pain. But the creature laughed deep and wild, echoing like thunder. Foolish mortal, your love is but a whisper in this storm. It retaliated, shadows swirling violently, crashing against Jack's spirit, a tidal wave of despair pulling him under. Emily! Jack shrieked, the sound ripping through him like pure sorrow, desperation fueling each syllable. The world began to unravel. The altar throbbed violently, light flickering like a candle in a tempest. But just as hope flickered within him, doubt clawed at his mind. What if he couldn't reach her? What if this was where hope truly met its end? Stay with me, he demanded, the mist of the abyss attempting to peel him apart. Then he heard it, a whisper. No, a plea. Daddy, help me faint, yet cutting through the veil of darkness. It sliced into Jack's heart. There it was, the last remnant of Emily. He felt the flicker of a spark, warmth igniting in the cold abyss. I'm coming, baby, Jack shouted, his voice raw, straining against the darkness. Suddenly, a burst of energy shot through him, light bending, warping the shadows. It surged, raw and pulsating, leaping toward Emily, and Jack dove into the depths with every ounce of strength. He could feel the darkness pulling at him, but he wouldn't stop. Emily, I won't abandon you. And in that moment, he saw it, a blinding light, an opening beyond the shadows. Could it be the escape, or was it merely an illusion? But the creature shrieked, anguish clawing at the confines of its terrible form. You will pay for this. She is mine. You are too late. Jack pressed forward, doubt evaporating, a singular purpose blazing in his chest. He was closer now, edging toward that diminishing light. But as Jack lunged toward Emily, shadows writhed with renewed ferocity, coiling around his limbs like vipers. Could he break through? Would he finally unveil the truth lurking in the heart of darkness? Or would the light fade forever? The last vestige of Emily's voice echoed in his ears, and he bolted forward, heart racing, desperate to break the chains binding them both. What lay in wait as he crossed that threshold? The abyss beckoned. The darkness slammed against Jack like a wall, each shadow a suffocating weight. He fought against the curling tendrils, the whispers of despair wrapping tighter, dragging at him as he thrust himself toward the sliver of light. Emily's pleas echoed in his ears, a lifeline tethering him to the world he knew. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. He didn't have much time. The altar pulsed with sinister rhythm, taunting him, threatening to swallow both him and Emily whole. Jack, Jack. Emily's voice trembled, a fragile thread woven through the darkness. Hold on. Every inch was a battle against mounting dread. The shadows hissed, swirling angrily around him, dark fingers clawing at his mind. He could almost hear the creature's laughter, a low rumble that sent shivers racing down his spine. He lunged again, the light flickering just beyond reach. His body screamed from the strain, the darkness pooling at his feet like ink, pulling him back with a fierce grip. Let her go, he shouted, fury igniting the squall of fear within him. He could feel the weight of every doubt, every failure he had ever faced, but he couldn't let it win. Not this time. The altar responded, shaking violently as a hollow cackle resonated from the creature. You think you can defy the darkness? You are nothing. Those words wove through his mind, southward into the depths of his core. Was he nothing? The shadows pressed harder, choking him, squeezing him as the air grew thick, a twilight smog that made it hard to breathe. Emily! Jack's voice cracked, raw and desperate. With one final surge of will, he slammed his palms together, heart pounding. The whispers of ancient rituals flooded his thoughts, days spent in forgotten libraries, revisiting the grim history of sacrifice and loss. By the light I claim and the bond we share, he spat the incantation like a lit fuse, fury igniting his every word. I claim you. I summon you back. The words exploded, unleashed as beams of blinding light erupted from his chest, cascading through the suffocating darkness. Jack felt the shadows shudder, like a wounded beast in the throes of death. For a moment, time stood still. A pause. A breath. Then the creature shrieked, echoes of fury amplifying into chaos, its form writhing, twisting violently as the shadows recoiled. The altar dimmed, its sinister heartbeat faltering. With a cry that pierced the darkness, Jack surged forward, the radiant light illuminating everything, washing away the consuming shadows around him. And there she was, the real Emily, suspended in the air like a fragile butterfly caught in a tempest. Her eyes, still filled with fear, searched for him, pleading, as the void enveloped her small frame. "Daddy!" A single tear cascaded down her cheek, shimmering like a beacon through the blackness surrounding them. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the warm glow that encased her. All the love he had, every moment spent hoping and wishing, flowed from him toward her. I'm here, Emily. Just hold on." Struggling against the dark currents, Jack's outstretched hand trembled, fighting gravity, fighting despair, fighting time itself. The light around them pulsated with his heartbeat. Was this what hope felt like in the grasp of despair? The creature howled, its rage piercing the very fabric of the moment. "You will pay for this, Jack. You'll never escape." The world began to twist again, the air bending, the shadows thickening as they closed back in. Jack's heart raced. Time stretched, then shattered like glass. "Emily!" With one last mighty pull, he dove into the heart of the light. But as he reached for her, just inches apart, darkness swelled around the edges of the light, dragging at his being. The creature was relentless. "Daddy!" Her voice rang like a bell in a storm, but the light flickered. Was it giving in? Jack's entire being felt raw. Desperation boiling over. He had no choice. "I'll never let you go." And just then, the darkness lunged, a sweeping shadow threatening to claim them both. What price would he pay to save her? As the darkness swirled in for the final act, an unholy bargain loomed. And Jack knew the terror wasn't merely about escape, it was about sacrifice. How far was he willing to go? Jack felt the shadows circling like vultures, hungry for the desperate moment between him and Emily. The creature's snarls echoed ominously, each word scraping against his soul. He couldn't think. He could only feel the icy grip of fear and the burning desire to protect his daughter. The altar pulsed erratically, the shadows writhing and thrumming, pushing against the boundaries of light. He had to act now or they were both lost. "Listen to me, Emily," Jack shouted, voice raw with adrenaline. "You have to fight. I'm right here. You have to come back to me." Her small face wavered amidst the chaos, dread spilling from her eyes like raindrops tracing a pavement. "Daddy, I want to stay with her." "So nice." The words stabbed Jack, cold and twisted, but they only solidified his resolve. "No, she is not nice, Emily. She wants to take you away." With each statement, he pushed against the darkness wrapping around her like chains. Each reply from her growing colder, duller, blending into that sinister laugh echoing around them. Every inch of him screamed to protect her, to save her from that fate. Then the creature lunged, massive claws scraping against the air, a ghastly grin spreading wide. "You think you can save her? She is mine now," it hissed, the implication of its words curling around Jack's mind like smoke. Paralyzed by terror, he prepared to fight. If it had to take him to save her, then so be it. "By the light I claim and the bond we share, I free you from this darkness." Jack's voice burst forth, shaking the very walls of the abyss. He felt energy swell inside him. Anticipation surged, and with every ounce of strength, he lunged into the light. As his fingertips brushed against Emily's, the world erupted in a cacophony of light and shadow. The altar shimmered dangerously, its power fluctuating, shadows wailing in protest. "Do you really think love can withstand shadows?" The creature shrieked, fury swirling like a tempest. In that split second, Jack felt the bond between him and Emily blaze brighter, linking them irrevocably, pooling their strength against the looming void. "Emily!" he shouted, pouring every ounce of hope and love into his words. You're stronger than this. Remember our adventures, our laughter. You're my light, Daddy, she cried, tears gleaming bright against the darkness, conflicting with the creature's insidious grip. He felt the shadows waver for the first time, like liquid dissolving in the sun. Emily, take my hand, right now. Believe in us. Jack's heart raced, resolute, fingers desperately reaching toward her. The shadows wavered, the allure of the darkness fading, and like a tidal wave, he felt her small hand slip into his. In that fateful moment, everything changed. Light erupted, engulfing them both as the creature howled, its cry a haunting wind that spiraled into dissonance. Desperate shadows shrieked around them, suffocating the darkness that had held them captive. The anchor of protection pulsed through Jack, the bond igniting more than he could comprehend. Together they surged forth as one, the light cresting and crashing around them, shattering the grip of darkness. Would it be enough to breach the very fabric of despair? With one final explosion of energy, the world cracked open, splintering the darkness and scattering it like ash on the wind. The creature's anguished roar echoed as the shadows collapsed around them, leaving nothing but an empty void, and then silence. Jack felt a sudden release. The oppressive weight of fear evaporated. The basement transformed, the altar crumbling, the walls around them dissolving away. They were back in the living room, sunlight pouring through the windows, children's laughter still echoing faintly from the other room. The air was clearer, lighter, devoid of heaviness. Jack collapsed to his knees, pulling Emily tightly against him, tears spilling unabashedly down his cheeks. She was here, in the light, whole and safe. Sarah rushed to them, an expression of relief washing over her face as she enveloped them both in a tight embrace. Relief flooded Jack's heart. Torrent of gratitude. We did it, he uttered, breathless. We fought it together. Emily pulled back slightly, her wide eyes shimmering innocence once more. Daddy, are we okay? He held her face in his hands, brushing a thumb over her cheek. Yes, baby. We're okay. We're home. As Sarah joined them, Jack knew they had weathered an unfathomable storm. The darkness that threatened to tear them apart had been cast away by their love, binding them even tighter. They were more than survivors, they were a beacon against darkness. The past would linger, whispering echoes of what happened in that cursed house. But for now, it would remain just that, a whisper of warning as they stepped forward into the light. Jack couldn't help but laugh amidst the tears. Who us up for pancakes? As they headed to the kitchen, the laughter felt strong, a testament to their bond of family standing resilient against anything. But as the sun bathed them in warmth, somewhere deep inside their souls, the faintest whisper of shadows still echoed, a reminder and a promise that they were never alone. And with that, dear friends, it's time for you to take action. If you've enjoyed this thrilling ride, you need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button to show how much you care and help us feed the algorithm like the hungry beast it is. Don't just stand there, flood the comments section with your thoughts, theories, and reactions about this ending. And please, I urge you, share this video with 5 friends who need this conclusion in their lives. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second. We cannot do this without you.